being picked on as a Latino in the States and as American in your own country. We're not paying $45,000 for you to go to a private school when you're in 5th grade. It really pissed me off. I was not home when this happened. If I was, having no real lifelong friends. Can't relate. It's too late now, but at some point they could have like revoked my acceptance into college like I was shitting my pants. Hi guys, it's Hailey, Sani, and today we're going to be talking about problems that only people who've moved a lot can relate to. I feel like I'm the CEO of moving a lot. I think I've switched schools 16 times. I've lived in 3 different continents, 6 different cities, and I'm 19 years old. My parents are literally just crazy like teenagers in their heads. They would go visit a country for like vacation, and then they would come home and be like, we're moving there. And that was my life. Something about moving a lot adds another layer to your character, and I think parts of that layer lives in so many other people who've moved a lot. So I took on my handy dandy Instagram stories and I was like, hey guys, send in some problems that we can all relate to. So let's get started. Not being able to connect with others because you're afraid that you'll move again. That's actually why I started my YouTube channel, fun fact, because I would move all the time that I literally gave up on putting energy into making friends, because every time I would get really close to someone, my parents would just be like, okay, we're moving. It was kind of like a blessing in disguise. Like I couldn't understand how moving so much would benefit me when I got older, because in the moment I was like, literally I just made this friend group and now you're tearing me away from them. In a way, it like kind of makes you more dependent on yourself over anybody else around you. You kind of learn to become your own best friend, which I think has definitely helped me like even build confidence. Feeling homeless and feeling like all your life can actually fit in a suitcase. I moved to the United States with 4 suitcases. Everyone in my family had 1 suitcase and that's it. IKEA becomes your best friend. Like I can literally look at a piece of furniture from IKEA and be like, yep, that's from the Malum series, that's the Alex drawers. I think my family has contributed so much to the net worth of that company. It just comes with this nomadic lifestyle. Finally beginning to settle in only to have to start all over again. I hated my life because of this. Like all I wanted was to live in a suburban home in the United States with like a white picket fence, go to a school where everyone would know each other the next year. I was like the guest star. Like I would drop in, say a few lines, and then disappear from the season, and then everyone would forget about me. Having to make new friends fast. I think moving a lot forces you to have to adapt to situations a lot quicker. If you take your time, by the time that you're settled in, you're gonna have to move again. So you're trying to adapt to the new normal as quick as you can, so at least you can have a normal for a period of time. Someone said, never going to the same school for at least a year. I had never been at the same school for 2 years until like 10th grade or something. In 11th grade, when I returned back to school and it was like the same people I've known from the year before, it was such an alien concept to me. Like I was like, I know you. Being the new person, I've always been more eager to like be friends with the new people, if that makes sense. So when I went to a school for the 2nd year in a row, I officially was like, okay, I'm settled down. This is also my school. I'm not a guest star anymore. I have like a recurring role, so then when new guest stars would come in, like I would try to make them feel as welcomed as I could. And that's what I needed for people to do to me. They wouldn't really have an incentive to like want to come hang out with me or like want to introduce themselves to me. Meeting someone new and like including them into your friend group is something that's out of your comfort zone, and not a lot of people are willing to do that. That's why a lot of my friends are actually like people that also were new. I think those people just kind of find each other. Acceptance of change. The first few years when my parents would force us to move, I would like scream and cry and be like, I'm not doing this. 4th grade is when I first moved to the US, and I went to this private school in Miami. Very interesting experience. And then the next year my parents were like, we're not paying $45,000 for you to go to a private school when you're in 5th grade. Public school in Miami, even a crazier story. But before that transition, they found this like really small, kind of cheaper private school. It was a Christian school. My parents enrolled us, we got all our uniforms, went to this school for 3 days, and then my parents would be like, so how's school? And I was like, yeah, like we went to church this morning. And they were like we knew it was a Christian school, but we didn't know that they like put it in the curriculum so often, and they didn't really want us to, you know, go to school like that. And now when I'm older, like I get it. I get why non-religious parents wouldn't want to send their non-religious kids to a religious school. Like it makes sense to me now when I'm 19 years old. But at that point, it was my 3rd day at that school. They were just like, you're not going there anymore. So then like me and my sister, we cried. We were like, we hate you guys. Like you guys hate us. Like I just got my uniform tailored. You don't even try to fight it anymore. Like you just kind of go with the flow. It's kind of depressing now that I think about it. Being able to adjust to new environments environments and taking the time to learn about other people's cultures. I think this is such a valuable thing that comes from moving a lot. Like when I moved to Dubai, like Arabic people are just so warm. I felt so welcomed. Even like when you're in the mall and like a group of girls that you can tell are like natives there, like they would walk down the mall, the whole mall would like smell of their like rich perfumes, and their makeup would always just be so beautiful, and like it was just something that I would like admire as a little kid. I would literally be walking in the mall and then the call to prayer would go off, and the speakers, they would turn the music off when the call to prayer is going off. It's just like, it teaches you so much about cultures like that visiting a place doesn't. How to greet parents, adults. Latinos do first names and hugs. Awkward when you forget US is very different. In Turkey, when you're referring to someone who's older than you, for example, like you have to add a word after their name that means like older sister or older brother, and it's just like a term of respect. Like when I moved here, my friends would refer to my parents with their first names because it's normal here, and I could tell like how my parents were like kind of, whoa, like I mean I'm cool with it, it's just different. They like got used to it, and now when I go to Turkey, I just refer to people by their first names, and sometimes I see like a little question mark go off in their head when they're like, I'm literally 30 years older than this girl, like why would she just refer to me using my first name? Then I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, and then I have to add it. There's just so many different ways of living and talking and like culture. Like in Dubai, they do 3 kisses on each side. In Turkey and Europe, they do 2 kisses, but in America, like you go in for a hug. Like when I first moved to LA, I was like, why the fuck is everyone hugging me? Is this like a California thing? Like I don't want to be embraced by you, I don't know you. And like now I get it, like I love giving hugs now. Like now when I'm in Turkey, I give everyone hugs and they're like, why is this random girl giving me a hug? And I'm like, I used to be like you see. When people ask you where you're from but you're always moving, I always say I'm from Turkey, and then they're like, oh really, like were you raised there? And then I'm like, so like do you want me to start this story, because it's gonna take us a minute. I actually want to give you guys the full story of like every place I moved to, my experiences. I'm gonna do it in a podcast episode, stay tuned for that. Afraid of talking with people because of language problems. I could really relate to this when I first moved to the US because I had a British accent. Like I spoke British English, which is a little different, and also it's kind of just foreign. Like I wasn't that good at speaking English. Okay, I'll give you guys like an example. I did a TikTok about this and it kind of blew up, but maybe you guys can relate. Put a finger down if. I moved here, and in British English, a rubber is an eraser. In American English, a rubber is a condom. And I was in 5th grade and I kept asking people all the time in class for rubbers. Do you have a rubber? Do you have a rubber? And my teacher's face all the time was like, I guess she thought I was like being naughty, like a bad student, like doing it for fun, but I truly just did not know what the fuck I was saying. Like I was literally asking for an eraser. The benefit is that I have a really killer British accent that you would not even know that I was faking. I could literally be on Love Island and like get away with it. I could do the whole season and no one would notice that I don't have a British accent. I feel like this problem is more valid for like older people, especially like parents, foreign parents, and their issues, man, they just never end. People in America, I've noticed especially, look down on your intellectual level if you can't speak the same language as them. Like if your English is broken and you're trying, like they'll look down on you. Like my neighbor, it's such a Karen move of her. We would put our cardboard boxes like by the trash cans, because in Turkey, and I think even in America, like homeless people or like people who are just poor, like will collect cardboard boxes, take them to like a processing area, and then they'll be compensated for bringing in those recyclable boxes. Whenever I get PR, I always just leave them next to the trash cans. And my Karen neighbor decided to go on Google Translate and type in like, there's a trash can, like don't just leave your trash around, and like Google translated it into Turkish, print it out, and then stick it on my door, which it's so like I know how to speak English. I'm a college student here. Just because we don't speak the only language that you know as well as you does not make us inferior on an intellectual level, Karen. Like we probably know twice as many words as you know, just in a different language. It really pissed me off. I was not home when this happened. If I was, Karen would have a little lesson go down. So it said, and stalking your new school on Insta or Facebook before you go there. Bro, I would do this shit all the time. When I was living in Turkey, I thought we were gonna move to Laguna Beach. So I stalked the shit out of Laguna Beach High School. Like I literally, this is so weird. I probably sound like a stalker. I like knew the names of all the girls that go to that school. I would like look at how they dress. I visited the school when we first moved here, and I would see girls that probably have no idea who the fuck I am. But I'm like, I know your last name. You want not to know what you're getting yourself into. I knew where people would hang out after school, and I'd never even seen the school. Like, I wasn't even enrolled in this school, and I ended up never being enrolled in that school. Like, I ended up moving to Beverly Hills. So I have a good amount of information about people that live there. So weird, so weird. Not blending in, being picked on as a Latino in the States and as American in your own country. I was never like picked on for being Turkish, but I was always like, oh, the foreign girl. But then when I go to Turkey, people are like, oh my God, you have such a like slight American accent when you speak Turkish. I'll mispronounce words in Turkish. So I'm like, where am I from? Who am I? Really adds this like identity crisis onto the list of problems I already have to deal with. Always trying to reinvent yourself. That's, I think, one of the most fun aspects of moving. Like, you can be so many different versions of yourself, and I don't mean like being someone who you're not. It's like, you just moved to the school, these people have no idea who you are. You can portray yourself in a way that like you've never done so before, and you've always curious to like experiment with that. And then like if you end up liking it, and if it like feels authentic and genuine to you, like that's how these people are gonna think you've always been. Take this as advice if you ever end up moving, or even like not moving but like starting college or something. You can decide how other people are gonna perceive you. Someone said not having friends. This also happens. Maybe I was so drained from moving that I didn't put effort into like getting to know people, and my vibe wasn't the greatest. But it's like, it's not my fault, it's because I'm so drained. Now I'm overwhelmed because I just moved here. Didn't end up making any friends. Long distance friends everywhere. Yes, sir. You get so good at calculating the time difference. You like make up these little like hacks for yourself. FaceTime is your best friend. Change of schools and sucking at a subject only to get better at it again later in the year. The curriculum is so different. I'll give a direct example of what happened to me. So math in Turkey is a lot more advanced than math in the US. I'll be straight up. The math I was learning in 8th grade was equivalent to the math that like people in the US were learning in like 11th grade. So when I first moved here in the 10th grade, I had to take a math placement test so that they could determine what class I was gonna be in. And they gave me this test, and it was like stuff I'd learned literally like 4 years ago. Don't know how to do any of this anymore. So I got a shitty ass grade on this test because it was literally stuff I'd learned like in 6th grade or something. And so then they put me in the lowest like math class. When you finally get back into the pace of like learning this information, the teacher realized that literally I was getting like 100 on every single thing and was like, this girl should not be in this class. Ended up moving me 3 levels higher. This is my all-time biggest secret. Please do not tell anybody. Like, it's too late now, but at some point they could have like revoked my acceptance into college. Like, I was shitting my pants. I went to prep class in Turkey, where basically if you go to a new language high school, instead of high school being 4 years, it's 5 years. And I went to a French high school, so for the first year all you do is learn French. Like, you don't do math, you don't do science, like, and even if you do, it's like you're learning how to say addition, multiplication in French. Like, you're not actually doing math. So that's what I did. So when I moved to America, they were like, oh, so you did your first year of high school. Technically it wasn't like actual 9th grade. Like, 9th grade would have come for me the year after that, but they didn't ask too many questions. First year of high school, you already did it, so now you're gonna be a sophomore. So I started off school as 10th grade, but I never learned anything in 9th grade. So I literally lack like that whole ass chunk of information that 9th graders learn about. Hasn't really like affected my education at this point. Like, I got into UCSB, like pretty good school. Finesse the system. Having no real lifelong friends. When people are like, oh my God, we've been friends since childhood. We've been friends since birth. I'm like, can't relate, can't relate. My earliest friend is like from 7th grade, which is honestly still a pretty long amount of time for me. How much you change as a person and grow up faster. Moving is like reality hitting you all at once. You don't really have the time to like be that innocent kid anymore, because you're like I need to have like documentation of residency, and like these people have to like interview me in order for me to like be able to live here. It's not like this la la land that you're magically born into and like it's all you've ever known. I realized that it's hard being an immigrant somewhere, and like not all countries are super welcoming when I was in like 4th grade. A lot of 4th graders don't really know that. I'd be like 9 years old and we'd be house hunting, and I would really like this apartment, and I would be like, why don't we move here to my parents? And they'll be like, oh, because the rent is too high. Like, 9-year-olds don't really like learn about rent money being too high, like not being able to afford things. They're just too busy like living their own little lives, you know? Having mental breakdowns. So many of them. So many of them. Always fighting for which room you get with your siblings. This problem especially got worse when we both started becoming YouTubers, because we were like, no, you get the room with bad lighting. No, you get the room with bad lighting. Like, we would literally switch off. Life kind of like forces you to know things when you're moving, and I think that's why I'm so grateful. It makes for such a great story now every time I meet new people. I hope if you moved a lot, you were snapping your fingers to this and you could relate. Make sure you subscribe, because I always post videos videos about a bunch of different topics that are relatable. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you guys so much, all the way to Pluto and back. Bye.